Okay, today we're going to take a look at the State of Switch survey results for 2019. If you don't know, the State of Switch survey is something that I've been running for a couple of years now. The first one was last year, and it's as you might guess, a brief survey on everything Switch. So I asked people what they think about the games, what they think about the hardware, the durability of the hardware, what they think about any potential future revisions of the hardware as well. So this year, over 15,000 of you filled it out, which is an amazing response. So we're going to basically go through all of the results in this video, find out what people thought about the Switch, what they think about it now, what games they're looking forward to in the future, and things like that, basically. So let's go take a look. Okay, so I'm not going to waste any time, I'm just going to get straight into the data here. So first things I asked was whether people actually owned a Switch. So of course, this is a survey for Switch owners, but I didn't want to completely exclude those who don't have one either. I wanted to find out maybe why they don't. So the first question I asked was, do you own a Nintendo Switch? Now, like I said, over 15,000 of you filled it out, and around 97% of respondents do actually own a Switch, of those that filled this out. So only around 3% didn't, and that's around 450 people in terms of this survey. So from those, I said, like, do you actually intend to get one in the future? And most of them did. Obviously, that's kind of expected with a survey like this. If you're going to be filling out a survey about the Switch, you're going to be interested in it anyway. So to hear that most people actually want to buy one, that's good news, right? So yeah, like I said, of those that haven't got one yet, 92% are going to get one in the future. That's their plan, at least. Reasons as to why they're not getting one, well, they were kind of multifold. The most clear reason why people haven't got a Switch yet is the price. Most folks are waiting for an official price drop from Nintendo, and the price that they want to see is around $200 US. So that's the key reason, basically, that people haven't got a Switch just yet. For most other reasons, kind of things like timing. Also, quite a lot of people said they were waiting for a hardware revision, which we'll get to that later. And a lot of people are waiting for a specific game. So there's many reasons why people haven't got the Switch just yet. So what games are people waiting for before getting a Switch? Well, the number one response was, without doubt, Animal Crossing. People really want to owe Tom Nook money, I guess. Other games that people are holding out for are the next Pokemon game, Sword and Shield, I guess. That was revealed during the survey while it was taking place. So some people didn't know about it, some people did. But either way, it's an anticipated game. Other titles that people are holding out for are things like Metroid Prime 4, a Super Mario Maker 2, and things like that. Quite a few people also said they want to have either like a new Golden Sun game, an F-Zero title. Oh, and there were 2 people who said they're not going to buy a Switch until Mother 3 comes out. I reckon they should probably go and take that up with Reggie before he leaves, I reckon. Okay, after that, I moved on to questions for people who actually already own a Switch. And I started off by asking them things like, when did they get it and where did they get it? So most people, as you can see from this chart here, bought it whenever. Doesn't really matter, does it? The Switch has been out for 2 years. There's a whole range of places or time you could have got it. But as you can see from the chart as well, key dates like launch day, launch games, Christmas, holidays, things like that are popular times for getting the Switch as well. Nothing too shocking there, what you'd expect, so there we go. Now the next question I was kind of surprised at, because most people still say that they go in-store to buy their Switch. I kind of expected it would have switched over to online by now. So 56% of respondents said they've gone into a store and picked up a Switch physical. I guess it's kind of probably the immediacy or the tangibility of holding it in your hand straight away after purchase. There's something nice about that, which you obviously don't get with online having to wait. But there we go. As you can also see from the graph, quite a lot of people are getting them as gifts, or even buying them secondhand now. Now there's a secondhand market for the Switch a few years in, from places like eBay and Craigslist and things like that. Next up, I wanted to ask them about what console they actually have. Team Neon or Team Grey, right? So as for me, I'm on the Grey side, and I kind of regret it, to be honest. I think the Neon, on reflection at least, looks so much cooler. And although this thing is fine, I mean, I think I would have preferred the Neon on reflection. So it turns out most people still have the Grey. The Neon, only just behind it though. It's around 50-50 basically. And once you chuck bundles into the mix with things like the special edition Pikachu one or the Mario one with the red Joy-Cons, it's definitely even. Basically, Nintendo got this right down the middle. 50-50, Neon, Grey. Alright, the next set of questions is all about the games. And I started off by asking them basically, what percentage of their library is digital versus physical? I know for me, it's probably 80-20 in favour of digital games. But surprisingly, for most people, it's still around 50-50. Most people say that they have 50% digital library, 50% physical. And in terms of how many games people have, Switch owners now say that they have around 16 games on average. Last year when I ran this survey, it was 10. So definitely people are buying more games, which is great, I guess. And it's kind of not surprising considering how big the Switch's library is now. But on that point, I did think it was kind of interesting that it's still 50-50 physical digital. Like I said, I'm probably more 80-20 physical digital, in favor of digital, that is. So with the library of the Switch being so vast, and there's like over 1,700 games on the Switch now, and the eShop is filled every week with new titles. And you also see like loads of indie developers always saying that their games sell best on Switch. So I think I was kind of surprised to see that the digital kind of dominance wasn't there, and it was still kind of a 50-50 split in terms of physical digital. But yeah, I mean, it might not be a true reflection of things, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless. Okay, then I wanted to know what is the single game that you've spent more time on your Switch than any other game. And the results here, well, they might surprise you, they might not. There's a top 10, and I'm going to put it on the screen right now. And as you can see, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is still #1. People have played more Breath of the Wild than any other game. And to say that's surprising, considering it's a launch game and it's a single player game and it's still at the top, I think that bodes pretty well for Breath of the Wild. It's still got that top spot. Other games that kind of took the top kind of make sense, really. I mean, you've got Super Smash Bros. There, which is impressive considering it only came out in December of 2018, and Splatoon, which makes sense. Multiplayer games at the top of the playtime, that makes sense to me. That's where you're going to sink all your time into. As you can see on the rest of the chart, you've got games like Stardew Valley, Mario Kart 8, Mario Odyssey, Pokemon Let's Go, and things like that. Right, next up I asked questions about first-party published games. These are games that Nintendo themselves have published, so titles like Pokemon Let's Go, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, for example. So I asked the survey respondents, which of these first-party published games do you yourselves own? Just to kind of see how much of that Nintendo attach rate is there, The results are kind of interesting, because over 80% of you said that you own The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. That's a staggering attach rate for these games, especially considering that Smash Bros. Only came out in December of 2018. And this survey came out in, February of 2019, so only a few months have passed, and so many Switch owners have already got these games. Great. One thing that did come out of the survey results here is seeing which one was more popular, Pikachu or Eevee. And from the data that I've collected, it looks like Pikachu is the more popular Pokemon title, but only just. 22% of respondents said they had Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, while only 20% said they had Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. So it's a small gap, but it's a gap nonetheless. Pikachu, you take this round. Whilst talking about first-party published titles, I also asked about Labo, and only 6% of survey respondents said they actually had Labo, with the Variety Kit being the most popular. During last year's survey, I asked, this is before Labo came out last year, I asked whether people were actually interested in Labo at all, and over 50% of them said that they weren't. So it's no surprise to see the performance of Labo here being what it is. Next up, I asked if people have actually used the region-free capabilities of their Switch, and most of you haven't. So I asked basically whether you've visited another eShop region on your Switch itself, or you've imported any games from a different country. 78% of people who filled out the survey said they had not bought any games from any other regions. So that's using a different eShop from a different country, or importing games from overseas. Quite a large number of you haven't done that. From those who have done it, I asked why. Why have you gone to the effort of importing or using a different region eShop? And for the most part, it was either price or availability. So for example, a game's demo might be available only in certain countries, so that's for someone to go and download it from a different eShop. Or like a limited edition of a game may only be released, say, in Japan, and you want that over in the UK, you'd have to import it. So that's kind of the reasons people are doing that. Price was a big one as well, of course. For example, I know a lot of people use the South African eShop because that was a lot cheaper than, say, the US eShop and things like that. So there are these reasons people are jumping around, and because the Switch is region-free, that's something you can do. Whilst we're talking about the eShop, I asked whether people thought that it could be improved and what sort of things you'd like to see. Now, I do think there are some issues with the eShop in terms of discoverability. There are so many games coming out for the Switch, and they come out at such a pace. I mean, I write a newsletter every week where I list all of the games that are coming out, and on average, I reckon there's probably between 25 and 30 games each and every week. So it's no surprise that these games just instantly fly off the front page so quickly. So people are clamoring for some sort of better search, better discoverability on the eShop. Be that more categories, better filtering options, improved search, like I said. All of these things are something that would go some way to making the eShop better. And another thing I saw quite a lot of people ask for is personalized recommendations. So if I buy a lot of Metroidvanias, recommend some Metroidvanias to me. I think that's the sort of thing people would expect to see from the eShop as it grows and matures over the years. So yeah, eShop improvements, that's what we want to see. Oh, and while we're talking about the eShop, How about you chuck some music on it as well, Nintendo? People want that. Okay, sticking with the games, what about ports? In recent years, Nintendo have moved quite a lot of their Wii U library over to the Switch, and I just wanted to get a sense basically of how people feel about this. I asked the same question last year, and the results, if anything, have actually gotten better. People are now more accepting of ports coming to the Switch than they were a year ago. 82% of survey respondents said that they're okay with this and they want to see more of it, as opposed to less ports coming over. I think the thing that's kind of happened now is the Switch has come this kind of accepted home of ports and like re-releases and things like that, mainly because of the portability of the system. I think that goes a long way in terms of explaining people's acceptance of having ports on the system. So people are happy with it. People are happy to see more of it. Finally, while on the topic of games and software, particularly Nintendo, I asked, if you had to have one focus for Nintendo, you can only pick one here, which would it be? And surprisingly enough, the results are pretty 50-50, which make it quite funny. There's no just kind of distinctive answer. I said, would you rather Nintendo made more new IPs, so like Splatoon and ARMS, or bring back old IPs like Golden Sun and F-Zero, for example? And the results are 55% for more new IPs, 55% for more new IPs, and 45% for bringing back old IPs. And it is kind of a similar result to 2018 survey. So this to me just kind of says that Nintendo need to strike a balance, you know? People want to see fresh new things from them, but they also want them to rely on their back catalogue and their old intellectual properties and old franchises. So Nintendo, you have to strike a balance. It's not an easy one, but that's what the Nintendo fan base expect from you. Next up was all about play styles. How do you play your Switch? Is it TV mode? Is it handheld? Tabletop mode? I asked the question and 51% of you said that you play on the TV, whereas 47% of you say you prefer handheld. 3% tabletop mode. I mean, with this kickstand, I don't know how that's the way you play the most often, but hey, you do you. So as for me, I'm completely like, I'd say 90% handheld most of the time. I just love the portability of this thing. So there are the results. Most people play in TV mode, but it's only just. I think this kind of speaks to the flexibility of the Switch as a whole. I mean, there's no clear winner here. People like the ability to mix it up, you know? Do it in the dock, do it undocked. That's the kind of freedom that the Switch allows. And the fact that this result is pretty much right down the middle. If you add like tabletop mode and handheld mode together, it's pretty much 50-50. So it kind of goes to show people really like the flexibility that the Switch affords them, I guess. Next up was a question on your preferred control style, whether that's playing on the TV or undocked. And by far and away, the Pro Controller was the #1 choice for how to play on your Switch. The Joy-Con grip came second, and the split Joy-Con, when you have one in each hand like this, was third. I quite like that split Joy-Con playstyle, but as you can see, the Pro Controller is the #1 choice. Other popular controllers included the GameCube, which always comes up high, I guess, and the 8BitDo, or 8BitDo range of products as well, and the PowerA pads as well. They proved quite popular in terms of the other options there. So that's what people like in terms of third-party controllers. Next up, I asked about memory cards and whether people have any in their Switch or not. Most do now. I mean, 75% of respondents say yes, they have a micro SD card in their Nintendo Switch. Great way to boost up your memory. But in terms of what sizes people have, 128 gigabytes was by far the most popular, with around 45% of respondents saying that they have a massive 128 gig card in their Switch. 64 gig was the next popular, and then after that was 256. I think this has changed in the last year, probably because prices have come down. I've seen some really good deals on some micro SD cards, so it's no surprise to see more people have been picking them up. In terms of battery life on the Switch, I asked whether people use a portable battery charger. You know, those like mobile phone kind of style charger you can get, well, those for the Switch basically. So you can charge the Switch via USB-C while on the go. And most people don't use them. 78% of respondents said they don't have one, with only a few, 22% saying they do. So despite people saying that the Switch's battery life is pretty poor, it's okay. And in practice, most people seem to think it's fine and they don't feel the need for an external battery pack. Now, I asked some questions about the Nintendo Switch Online. Obviously, when I ran the survey last year, the service hadn't launched and it had been delayed until, was it September of 2018. So now I've actually got some data on what people think about the service now it has properly launched. Of those who filled out the survey, 70% said that they are now members of the Nintendo Switch Online service, with around 30% saying that they weren't. In terms of what sort of membership people have, most people are on the annual plan, with 63% saying they were on that. But after that, the family plan was the second most popular. So with the family plan, I wanted to see whether people were actually being honest and using it with their family. So I asked, is the group of, you can have up to 8 members in this family plan. I asked, is this group just your family, or is it your friends? Is it a mix? Or is it just some random people from the internet that you buddy together with to get a cheaper rate? And for most people, it is friends, not just family. 47% of people are in groups with just their friends. Then the mix, then just family. And about 100 people said that they're just in groups with random people off the internet. So that's a cheaper way of getting onto the service, and people seem to be doing that. Next up was a multiple choice kind of option in terms of why people signed up for it. And obviously the number one reason is to play online. That's kind of no surprise there. If you want to play Smash Brothers or Splatoon, you're going to have a membership. But second to that were things like the Nintendo Entertainment System app. People want to have access to that. And cloud saves was also another big reason why people are signing up. No surprises there really, but it goes to show. Now, in terms of whether people think that the Nintendo Switch Online service is actually good value for money, most people think that it is, with 57% saying yes, it's good value for money. Now, as you can see from this one, people don't use the voice chat on the Switch. I think it's kind of got to the point now where people don't really expect Nintendo to provide good voice chat, and people are just going to seek out their own alternatives. And in terms of what those alternatives are, Discord seems to be the most popular. Followed by, curiously enough, people using other consoles. So if you want to play on the Switch and talk to your friends, quite a lot of people are just going to turn on their Xbox or turn on their PS4 and use the voice chat there, which is kind of not a good look. And I guess it's not good for the environment either to have 2 consoles running at once just to have some voice chat, but whatever, that's the way it is. Now, of course, with the Nintendo Switch Online service, you do get access to a growing library of Nintendo Entertainment System games. Now, as they're part of your membership, that you can access them for free at any time. And 82% of people who have a Switch membership are actually playing them. They said they have checked them out at least. But that is kind of as far as it goes, checking it out, because most people said they've spent less than 2 hours in the app playing throughout the library of games. Now, of course, that might change as the library grows bigger, but for now, a lot of people really are just kind of dipping in, checking it out, and then checking out. And I guess people go back when games are released, but for now, the playtime in the NES games is pretty low. Now, I asked a few questions about durability. This is mainly because during 2018, there were a few reports that the Switch hardware was starting to crack, like the case was starting to have some hairline cracks on it and stuff like that. So I just wanted to kind of put the questions out there to people and see whether this was a widespread problem or not. And the results kind of show that, for the most part, it isn't. I asked whether people had any problems with their Nintendo Switch, whether hardware or software, and the majority said no. 69% said that they hadn't faced any issues at all with their Switch. Of those that had, it was things like Joy-Con drift. That seems to be the big issue for a lot of people. After this, I asked specifically whether their Switch hardware was starting to show signs of wear and tear. And for the most part, again, no, it wasn't. We all know that Nintendo are known for making long-lasting, hard-wearing, durable hardware. So this is no surprise, really. But in terms of what problems people have been facing, quite a lot said that they had issues with their Joy-Cons. So the fact that these small little controllers are facing some issues, I don't know how surprising that is. But the Joy-Con drift seems to be the issue for a lot of people. And I've seen kind of some suggestions that compressed air in here might help, but don't take my word for that, will you? Of those who said they had some problems with their Switch, around 700 people said that they did actually see some cracks on their Switch hardware. So I don't know how widespread that problem is, but there's some data for you. Around 700 people said that they're starting to see some cracks on their Switch casing. As a whole though, when I ask people how they feel about their Switch, most are really, really happy with it, scoring it 4.5 on a scale of 5. Okay, so my next set of questions was all about improvements and changes people would like to see in the Switch itself. So I started by asking all about Switch hardware changes they want to see. And the number one thing that people want to see is better battery life, which is kind of amusing considering what I was just saying earlier about people not using battery packs. But that is the one thing people want to see the most. Now, it wasn't like an outright winner, only 4% difference in it. And the second most popular request is Bluetooth support. It really would be nice to not have to use the headphone jack here on the Switch and actually be able to use Bluetooth headphones. I mean, I want to use some AirPods with this thing. That would be great, right? So Bluetooth support would be a really welcome addition. Other than that, people want to see more internal memory. 32 gig is a little bit on the stingy side, I think. And a higher resolution screen. But that kind of brings me on to like what revised hardware would look like anyway, and I'll get to that in a minute. Next, I asked what software improvements they want to see in the Switch. And without doubt, the kind of most popular choice here was built-in messaging of some sort. Now, whether that be voice or text. Now, we know like Nintendo have a solution and it's that awful app and no one uses it and everyone just uses Discord. So it's no surprise really that people want some sort of native built-in messaging directly into the Switch. Even just being able to message people with text, you know, from the user profile screen would be a start, I think. So that's what people want. After that, more media apps. We've already got YouTube and Hulu. People want Netflix, people want Crunchyroll. They want to see these apps on their Switch. They expect them. So that's another thing that is really highly requested here. Okay, this last set of questions are all kind of crystal ball-y, I guess, in terms of it's all kind of future stuff, what you want to see going forward. I started by asking what is the one Nintendo franchise that you want to see on the Switch that isn't there already? Now, I did ask on this question to not mention games that have already been announced or already out. So here's the results. As you can see, the #1 most requested game to come to the Switch is F-Zero. This kind of surprised me. I don't know why, but it's been so long since we last had an F-Zero game that I think it probably is overdue now, right? After that, it was Pikmin, which again kind of surprised me, but Pikmin 4 apparently has been done for so long, so having that would probably do the job. And then you can see the rest. We've got games like Metroid, whether that be a Metroid Prime 4 or a 2D Metroid. Earthbound, Mother 3, those sort of things. People want them. A new Paper Mario game would be great. And also like a Wii Sports was mentioned quite a lot. So I think whether it's like a Switch Sports or a Mii Sports, having that on the Switch would be great. So those are the kind of Nintendo franchises that people want to see more of on the Switch. So what about third-party franchises? Well, the #1 request, Persona. Obviously Joker is coming to Smash and many expect that a game may follow him. So to see such a response for people wanting Persona on the Switch is kind of encouraging, and I guess kind of suggests that people are ready to have experienced that on a Nintendo console. Second after Persona was Kingdom Hearts, and I guess it's kind of following the release of Kingdom Hearts 3, people got kind of thinking about that game's in their mind, they want to see that on the Switch. Whether it's the Kingdom Hearts 3 or some re-release of the old games, things like that. Okay, next they asked about new hardware, which has been rumoured this year. So I asked which you'd prefer, the Switch Pro or the Switch Mini. Now, of course, we don't know what that means, but there does seem to be two trains of thought that there is either going to be a Switch which is beefed up with like a better screen, better battery, things like that, or you're going to get a Switch Mini, which is, I don't know, secure, you can't detach the Joy-Cons, things like that. Those sort of things have been rumouring around, and basically the response here is we want a Switch Pro. That doesn't surprise me, considering that the people answering this survey already have a Switch, so they kind of know what it is, and they wouldn't want to compromise by getting a Switch Mini for whatever that compromise may be. So it's no surprise to see most people here want to go Pro. Okay, so that's it. That's just kind of a brief overview of all the survey results. If you want to dive deeper into this, all the results are going to be on my website, and I'll drop a link in the description below. It's over at switchweekly.com. And they've also done a write-up going into so much more detail on all of the questions. So if you want to dig deep into all of those surveys, results, and look at all the charts in detail and get a sense of what people really think about the Nintendo Switch, you can do that. Like I said, over 15,000 of you took the survey this year, so it took me ages to dig through all of your data and kind of pull on the trends and see what people were saying. So give this video a like if you kind of appreciate that and what I'm doing here, and hopefully I'll be back next year with the survey again. But yeah, I just want to say thanks for watching, and thanks for filling out the survey if you did. I really, really appreciate it. Cheers.